Did your school have a school genius that was frighteningly talented or intelligent? Where are they now, and what are they currently doing? Story 1. I went to a small high school with about 70 kids per grade in Kansas. The genius in the grade above me works at the Large Hadron Collider in Europe. He was a really good dude. The best story that stuck out for me is he used to hang out with another guy, Eric, who was a pretty hardcore football player and wrestler. No one wanted to mess with him. One day I heard a teacher say jokingly, "It's scary they hang out together because this guy is smart enough to build a bomb and Eric is crazy enough to use it." Story 2. We had at least 3 or 4, and they all went on to Ivy League colleges, except the one I knew as more than just an acquaintance. He went to a state college for the tuition and now works for NASA and their Jet Propulsion Laboratory as a Langley intern. They were all very nice people, and one of them used to stop me in the hallway like a creeper, but it always turned out to be for really nice, lovely reasons. Like when he got me a ton of chocolate for Valentine's Day, and he hated chocolate, so when he saw me out of class for a bathroom break, he whispered my name a bunch until I turned around and went, "This is awkward, but do you like chocolate? Because I have a ton and I don't like chocolate." We ended up standing by his locker, chatting while I nibbled chocolate. Another is also working at NASA, but I forget which department or division. And finally, one's a doctor in Massachusetts who does a bunch for charity and does Doctors Without Borders all the time. I don't know why we had an abnormal amount of geniuses in the years I went to middle school and high school, but we were slammed. Still, they were the nicest, most humble people I ever met, and 10 out of 10 would sleep next to them in chemistry again. Story 3. My school's genius was painfully awkward and socially inept, but still a pretty nice guy. Perfect score on the ACT and the SATs. I have no idea where he chose to go to school. He owns his own lighting design company, along with his wife, who is an interior decorator. They just bought their 3rd vacation home. Our other school genius was also very awkward and socially inept. This was in middle school. He took the SATs in 8th grade, scored perfect, and skipped all of high school, and went straight to university at 14. He jumped off the 20th floor at the university the next year. Story 4. Kid who made high-grade explosives. He was a little weird and socially awkward, but a nice guy. At the age where you dick around with firecrackers and match heads, he was the same, except he was smarter, not wiser, than you or me. So he ordered various chemicals from the internet and ended up triggering the online companies into informing the police. Armed police kicked his family's door in at 3 a.m. and stormed the place. Army bomb squad examined the stuff he'd made. Apparently, it was pretty much stable plastic explosive, but still had to take it out onto the fields behind his house and destroy it. He got away with little more than a caution and court-ordered counseling. Fell out of touch with him, but Facebook stalking reveals he went to Cambridge to study physics, and he now designs the software certain companies use to trade on the stock market, married the daughter of a Hong Kong investment banker, and splits his time between his apartment in Hong Kong and house in London. Story 5. Got a job right out of high school for the best gaming company in our country, basically our local Google. His starting salary was bigger than my parents, who've worked the same job for 10 years. He spent every paycheck on video games and was fired after like 3 months for being lazy. He decided to take a break year and mostly stayed at home playing video games. Actually met his current girlfriend playing Counter-Strike, so he has that going for him. Note, brains and talent are nothing compared to the power of sloth. Story 6. So my high school was a gifted school. With the exception of scholarship purposes, we all went to the top 30 universities. But still, I didn't meet a real genius until I went to college. This guy, 1 year above me, went on College Jeopardy and annihilated everyone. He was tens of thousands of dollars ahead of everyone every round, and he won overall. Graduated from our school, then went to our rival, MIT, and got his PhD. And now he's a principal engineer at Intel. One of my friends knew him personally. He said he was weird as hell, but being weird as hell is kind of normal in nerd haven. Note, is that why Intel is doing so poorly lately? Story 7. We did. She was one of my best friends too. She went through a stoner phase, drinks like a fish, married a stripper, and now works insurance. On the other side of the spectrum, the kid who nearly failed every math class and was literally kicked out of college now makes nearly $100K a year doing web development. Life's a freaking trip. Story 8. He wasn't a genius. He was socially awkward, uncharismatic, and most importantly, didn't like authority. Everyone expected him to fail. The girls in class used to say he will be living with his parents until he was 50. He was going to die alone. He was going to be a pedophile or commit suicide. I remember some people shooting paintballs at him when he was walking home, and this was when they were around 16 to 18 years old. Turns out he can play the stock market and has a mind for business. He bought his 3rd house recently and posted about it on Facebook. A lot of the people that bullied him and treated him like dirt started treating him like royalty. They talked about how they were good friends, had fun times, etc. He didn't buy it for a second. One of the girls tried to sue him for sexual harassment and false claim. He won easily because he has not had any physical contact with anyone from the graduating class because he flew across the country and didn't want to see any of them. Our high school keeps trying to invite him back to do a speech, talk, or just tell anyone the secret to his success. He told them to screw right off. When they said they were going to open a new building and name it after him, he told them they better not because he refuses to give his name to that school in any kind of capacity. The school quickly backed down. I wouldn't say he is completely a 100% happy person. He's very defensive and doesn't trust others openly. He has few friends, and from the looks of things, that's all he needs. Story 9. School genius was an absolute sweetheart and still is. He received 98% on the IB, International Baccalaureate, and went to Oxford to study law. We're Australian, so that is a big deal. He has since returned and become a corporate lawyer earning huge amounts, met his now wife at a corporate event, and at the age of 36 has 2 beautiful little girls. His parents are extremely well off, but he also worked his ass off to get to where he is today. He's one of those quote-unquote rich white guys that fortunately doesn't take anything for granted and knows how lucky he's been, but can also hold his head high because he's worked hard for everything he has. Story 10. My friend Ian was the smartest kid in school. He was 2 grades above me, got a perfect score on the SAT, and actually wrote the skeleton of a play for the drama club. Me and some other people higher up in the club all sat down with him and our drama teacher and did some editing like made lines shorter, easier to memorize, used really big words, added or changed characters so we could use more people in the production. He jokingly applied to Yale just to see what would happen, and he actually got in, and they really wanted him to go, just not enough to lower prices enough for someone from Hicksville, Michigan to go there. He ended up going to Michigan Tech, and I don't remember what his major is. Story 11. I hung out with a crew of them. We all played Dungeons & Dragons together, and those were good times. These were wildly bright kids, and they all came from good homes. 1 is a commercial airline pilot now, 2 work for NASA. 1 flew fighter jets in the Air Force, 1 got a full ride to MIT and is doing some kind of engineering work the last time I checked. 1 is a successful graphic designer living a comfortable life with his lovely wife and 5 kids. The wife posts a little too much on Facebook, but she is a good person. 1 is a social justice lawyer or some such and a successful one at that. Then there's me. I was the poor kid in the group. Even if I was the dumbest one of them all, I'm still probably somewhat smarter than the average Joe. I ended up working at a big box department store to help my family pay the bills while I watched all of my friends go on to have wildly successful careers. By the time I did go to college, I felt like I was already way too old. I won some prestigious national scholarships that took me to some interesting places, but I chose a degree that nurtured my soul and not my bank account. I own that one and I don't have any regrets, but I don't have any money either. So now I'm unemployed, going on 32, and I just feel tired all the time. It's like I've had the best years drained out of me. I own my own blame for my choices, but I think being poor had a lot to do with where I am now. My girlfriend and I just broke up last Sunday. One of the deciding factors was that we were in 2 different places, life path-wise. What a screwed-up show. Story 12. I knew a genius in high school who jumped 2 grades. He was 12 as a freshman. He was the first seat in symphony orchestra, attracted all the girls' attention, and excelled in every class, including calculus AB and physics 2. This kid was pretty humble and introverted but showed signs of mental illnesses like schizophrenia. I saw him last year in high school just randomly shaking his head and arm and returning back to normal as if nothing had happened. Story 13. My school genius was a bossy know-it-all, like a badly written Lisa Simpson. She was bullied a lot. I was a runner-up smart kid, smart enough to be smarter than everyone else, but under the radar enough to avoid daily hatred. I went through a roller coaster relationship with her. We were friends, then we weren't, then we were, then we weren't. It was my fault, really. I was a screw-up of a kid. Her mom was really overbearing about her studies and extracurricular activities, to the point that even other kids would whisper about it, and the poor girl had multiple breakdowns. I don't know what happened to her after primary school. I don't even know if she's still alive, to be honest. The poor girl was destined to be one of 2 things, a genius or a statistic. That kind of pressure can really damage a kid. Story 14. My school was literally started for him. His parents had homeschooled him, and while they were both extremely intelligent, they wanted him to have a high school for some reason. So they got a charter school and started his freshman year. I have no idea where he is or what he's doing. Story 15. There was this one kid who was autistic. He could memorize basically anything in seconds, but is practically impossible to communicate with unless you were someone close to him. Don't know how he's doing now, but from what I've heard, he still needs full-time support from his parents. I worked a telecom job with a guy who was quite autistic. If you told him your birthday, he would instantly tell you what day of the week you were born. He would also tell a lot of people what their zip code was as soon as they tell him what town they lived in before they had a chance. It was beyond extraordinary. The guy was also beyond socially awkward. He would walk up to a full table in the break room and just linger very close to people. I'd always try to sit away from him in the cubicles because he was very loud on the phone. He also didn't understand proper sales speech. I was sitting near him one day because all the other seats were full and I heard him say very loudly, "Well, ma'am, if you'd stop asking questions, the call would be over in about 5 minutes." I fell out of my chair laughing. The guy was a mathematical genius, but they had to let him go because he just couldn't keep people on the phone or make sales. I think they should have allowed him to explain that he was autistic. People had no idea. Story 16. Yep, my best friend. She's still freakishly smart, just got a STEM PhD from Harvard and felt guilty that it took her so long to finish. She finished in 6 years after skipping a grade in school. She's 27 and has a frickin' STEM PhD and feels like she hasn't done enough. That girl is for sure going to cure cancer. She's going to cure cancer, refuses to patent the technology, and does everything in her power to make sure it's a super low-cost drug everybody can afford. And that drug will save millions of lives. She'll win every prize ever. And then she'll be sad that she couldn't make the miracle drug cure cancer and diabetes. Story 17. I had the school genius in my class. She always had the best grades in all of school. Could have gone to med school if she wanted. Went to law school because her parents were both lawyers. It took her almost twice the time to finish it. Where I'm from, it's 4 years for the degree and she took 7, and is currently working as a shop assistant at Primark, a clothing shop in Europe. I heard she had a major meltdown in university because her grades weren't top of the class and she didn't know how to handle it. Story 18. My school has one, a freaking genius that excels at every scientific subject and entered one of the best universities in my country for the medical profession. Everyone in my school thought he'd become a surgeon or something like that. Well, he did graduate from university, but never got his license to be a proper doctor. Apparently, during university, he found out that he really liked and was good at boxing. Currently, about 5 years after he graduated, he had become a professional athlete in boxing and won a few championships. The dude has one of the best minds I've seen, but apparently nothing makes him happier than boxing. Story 19. This guy was beyond genius. I mean, just knew a little bit of everything, valedictorian, etc. He was rather sheltered by his own choosing, got a full ride scholarship to MIT. In his first semester, he discovered he really liked sex and alcohol. Ended up dropping out after that first year and had a pretty messed up life for a decade or so. Something, I don't know what, woke him up and he turned himself around, and he's currently an executive for one of the world's largest construction firms. Story 20. My school genius got a 5 out of 5 in Calculus 2 AP when he was a junior in high school. He was a douche, but no one denied the kid was a genius, loved learning and loved being smart. He had completed most AP classes by the time his senior year had started. He got accepted to MIT for physics. He got drunk one night during graduate school, scaled a building on campus with his friends, and fell off, killing himself in Darwinian fashion. It's truly one of the most ironic things I've ever seen. The smartest person I've ever met died in the dumbest way I had ever seen. Story 21. Not from my school, but there was a kid who's my mom's friend's son. When I was young, my mom would tell me stories of how good he is at studying and how he's a gifted student and probably going to be a doctor or a lawyer and earn lots of money. Maybe as a way to compare me to other kids to motivate me in my studies. The way that they praised him, I legitimately thought as a kid that he's going to be a future president or something. Fast forward, many years later, that guy decided to drop out of school and went to be a tattoo artist. He has full sleeves on both hands, too. Heard that his parents were disappointed that he turned out that way, but hey, at least he's doing what he loves right now and not being forced to be what his parents' vision of him is. Story 22. General in the U.S. Army now. The dude was always compassionate to other people, motivated, and wicked smart, and he carried his single mother family on his back by constantly working as a teenager and young adult. Weirdly enough, one of his sisters was born mentally deficient. The other is just dumb as hell for making stupid freaking decisions like being a single teenage mother at age 16. Not sure how he turned out to be the ace, but he certainly rose out of living out of a dingy double-wide trailer without a father to do great things. Life is this dude's oyster. Story 23. A bit cliche, but I literally had someone of Chinese heritage, his parents came to England in the 60s, I think, who was the golden boy. Issue is, his intelligence was due to a mental condition that eventually degrades. I can't recall the name, but he'd always been like this since he was a child. It started to show in college, his grades began slipping, and by the time I left, he was barely keeping a grade C. And this wasn't a slacking because he's in college and college students prefer partying to studying kind of thing. His parents are still knocking around, but to my knowledge, he doesn't have a job, or much of a life really. His condition advanced and now he's not got much of a life. You'd never think he was the genius now. Story 24. He was my, frenemy. Got a full ride scholarship to a Division I school for legit academic excellence, had a 7-figure job as the eventual head of his family's company waiting for him. All he had to do was finish college. Quit college 2 years in, ran a business his parents bought him into the ground. Soon after, driving under the influence cases started, driver's license now gone, ostensibly for life. Now works as a crappy bartender and plays in awful bands. His kid's baby mama lives with him, and their terror of a kid in the 4-bedroom almost mansion his parents gave him after it was revealed he could no longer drive. I'll never understand why he didn't at the very least finish college, but since he apparently has a huge safety net made out of money, he will likely never have to be accountable, ever. Story 25. I was one of the top kids in my school, projected top grades in pretty much everything, and I seriously wanted to be a nuclear physicist when I was about 12. This was in a rough sink estate school that really wasn't expected to churn out anything but factory drones. At 13, I discovered alcohol, then drugs, and screwed my life up. Spent the next 30 years on and off heroin, amphetamines, and other drugs, and I basically ruined my life and any career prospects. I managed to accidentally get into IT during a clean phase, stuck with that for nearly 20 years with absolutely no interest in it, but was piss easy, paid very well, and you could be a functioning addict while doing it. Currently clean, apart from prescription opiates, and pretty seriously and permanently ill, making scratch money restoring vintage motorbikes. Ironically, I'm the happiest I've been in decades. Story 26. That would be my best friend. He skipped ahead 2 grades in elementary school. In middle school, he learned how to code in HTML and Java, and in the 90s made websites for various businesses and doctors in the area. He used the money he made to start a business while attending college for a computer science degree. His business was PC assembly and repair, and he ran a major operation near his university that serviced many of the students there. He taught himself board repair and learned a huge amount of schematics. He got married after college, and his wife insisted they move back closer to her family, and he obliged. He closed his business and figured he'd restart in her town, Nowhere, Montana, population, old. He moved in 2007, right before the economy collapsed and all the job growth in tech ceased completely. He now works IT at a local bank, making $18 an hour. The good news is he likes the quiet country life. He likes the easy, cushy job that lets him dabble and goof off 90% of the time. And he loves his wife more than anything. The dude should be a multi-billionaire tech guru, but found a new calling for a simple life. Story 27. I went to middle school with an incredibly intelligent boy, super smart and very attractive, was the adopted son of the wealthiest family in town. Died from a brain tumor when we were 13. That was about 40 years ago, and I still wonder how his life would have turned out. No, that's not possible. You can't be super smart and very attractive. Quantum mechanics forbids this. Okay, I might be a little jealous. Story 28. Both killed themselves. One is because he was only measured by his achievements, not his personality, even at his funeral. The other one must have had mental issues no one was aware of. Story 29. Couple. One got rejected from MIT, supposedly because they had too many Asians, ended up going to Caltech and now works at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. There's actually an interview of him going around talking about one of the Mars rovers. He's still comically awkward. Another went to Harvard on a full academic scholarship and was a VP of a Fortune 500 before the age of 30. So he ended up getting a better education and nicer weather. That turned out well. Story 30. My classmates all thought that was me, so no, we did not have a genius in our class.
Spouses who marry the cool girl or boy from your high school. What are they like now? My mom was the elite Atlanta debutante and lived a very cushy life at a budding Miami country club. Beautiful and very popular at the private school. My dad grew up on a farm in Virginia. They weren't poor, but they were definitely not refined. Eventually, my father's family made it down to Miami after selling the farm. He became the lifeguard at the country club pool where my mom spent days lounging about. My parents say they saw each other and that was it. The story was great. The debutante and the lowly lifeguard. They just celebrated 54 years of marriage. My lowly lifeguard father made quite the life for my mom, regardless of what all those elite people said was going to happen. She gladly left the country club life for him, and they're still so utterly in love. It's crazy. He carries a photo of her at the pool where they met. The only references she makes to being that girl are that they proved everyone wrong. They're beautiful, and I love their stories. For a very brief second, I thought this was a Family Guy reference. Story 2. My mom was the cool girl all through high school, undergrad, grad school, but life didn't go that well. For most of her life, she had to be caring for someone in the family who was ill, and that took a huge toll on her. First, it was her dad. Then it was me, my childhood illnesses. Then her in-laws in quick succession. Then her dad again, and finally she had to nurse my dad until he passed away from an illness. She was meant to be social and have fun, and instead, she was forced to be around sickness and sadness for her best years. She's a very happy and mentally strong person in general who made the best of things. She hosted a lot of people and events. My house growing up was full of people visiting and having fun. She's very charming and easy to talk to, and has a lot of fans all the time. Though my siblings and I find her social side rather annoying, she isn't like that with us. And she tells us her charming side is just an act, and the real her is the lady who's constantly critical of us for our own good. She likes having groupies hanging around, people who are happy to take her help and be grateful to her. She has very few friends who could be considered her equals. She also expects a lot from other people and is constantly disappointed. She wants to be the center of everything. She doesn't know how to be a guest at anything. She somehow ends up running every event she's invited to. She sincerely believes she's helping, but it's just disrespectful sometimes, and when we tell her that, she doesn't get it. She likes to do everything and make decisions for everyone. We joke that if the Prime Minister was her friend, she'd somehow end up running the country for him. Story 3. He was the one who had the six-pack while the girls swooned over. Very popular. I was not. Saw him after just leaving high school and started going out. Ended up getting married in her early 20s. God knows why. I guess we thought it was just what happened next. He never grew up. All he wanted to do was play online games. But I mean constantly. He would get in from work, walk straight past me in the spare room, straight online and play until the early hours. Get a bit of sleep, go back to work. Same thing, again and again. Never wanted to go anywhere. Just wanted to play. Eventually, I gave him an ultimatum. He chose the game. From what I gather, he's remarried to someone else we went to school with and has 2 kids now. I was told she had to give him an awful lot of ultimatums before he eventually grew up. I really shouldn't find this funny, but just the thought of her giving him the ultimatum and him choosing the game made me laugh a little. Story 4. I don't like being the one to burst everyone's bubble, but my husband was the handsome, athletic guy with a great sense of humor that all the girls loved. I was the small, blue-eyed blonde cheerleader he chased for all 4 years of high school. We ended up getting together after we graduated from high school and were engaged just 6 months later. I should have kept running from him like I did in school. Now he's problematic and mistreats people. He lies all the time and has even stolen prescription medication from me. He's very jealous and has accused me of having an affair with every man I've ever worked with, all without any reason at all. It got so bad at one point that he told me I needed to quit my job and stay home with their son. Then he criticized me for not having a job. I teach high school English, and he's jealous of my male students because he claims he sees the way they watch me and look at me. He's made my life miserable. He criticizes and makes fun of me for being diabetic, saying he never meant to marry a cripple, which is definitely not true. I'm happy to say that he'll be getting divorce papers very soon. I feel sorry for any woman who takes my place because he can't do anything for himself. He's never paid a bill, made his own doctor's appointments, and so on. He's exhausting. He's also the type of guy who likes to tell our son what a great guy he was in school and how he finally got the girl he wanted. It's disgusting. When we were dating, he acted like the man he thought I would want to marry, but I quickly realized it was all an act after we got married. If I could do it all over again, I would have left the country to get away from him. The only good thing that came from our marriage was my son. I'm sorry my story is the nightmare in the bunch, but I'm just being honest. Story 5. He was the cool guy. It was way after high school that I met him, but that's who he was then. And after he was the cool guy in his 20s, I guess, met him mid-late 20s. He'd had some relationship drama, now red flags, like kids, but had all kinds of excuses. My friends loved him way too much. In fact, they introduced us. I'd be friends with this group for 5+ years. Mostly guys, sensitive, normal type guys. Then they met him, as he was one of my old friends and he came into the friend group and within 1 month got me. The guys in the group worshipped him for his confidence and ability to pick up. He told me later this was his plan all along. After he saw my pic posted, he set out to get me. And after we got together, he totally removed all of the new friends and made me remove them off as my old friends too. For years, I was constantly accused of cheating with any male that would dare interact with me, so I deleted all social media and messaging. The fallout wasn't worth the mistreatment that followed. He strategically posts happy pictures with certain captions which communicate his dream status. My friends, the guys who introduced us, never believed me when I tried to turn to them for help. They were in adjacent hotel rooms when some of the mistreatments occurred. I ran there. They didn't believe me and sent me back to a more horrendous next few hours. And they never believed me weeks later when I dared call the one I was closest to, crying. He didn't believe me because my BF was so cool and charming and a guy they were jealous of. Well, you know how the story ends, or does not end. I'm still stuck here. It feels like my whole life has been taken away from me, and now I'm destined to be in a sad hole while taking responsibility for everyone else to make sure they're okay and thriving. Story 6. I sat next to the popular guy every day for pretty much 5 years, and I was so afraid of speaking to him. I watched him and his friends enjoy themselves. Typical school fun. They were rowdy and loud and intimidating, but he was the quiet yet seriously funny one, and I crushed on him hard for years. He remembers me as the little blonde girl who didn't speak to anyone. Because I was so anxious all the time, he also protected his sister from some girls every break time, and she'd come to find him for safety from them. Should have spoken to him sooner when school finished, because we have the same music taste and we get on well enough now at 26 that we have a 6-month-old daughter together. My daughter from a previous relationship, and we just got engaged last weekend. I adore him. He's handsome, charming, and funny, and I would do anything for this man as he would for me. Story 7. Not sure if he was necessarily cool, but my dad was the perfect and head boy of his school. Got along nicely with everyone and was responsible. They didn't have prom there, so that was the highest honor you could probably get. Worked hard and all and had his classmates help to tutor him. His grades didn't end up great because he came in late to school once and got after-school detentions. He would go home late and finish homework overnight, then get up at the start of dawn to watch his father's bus and be late to school again. More detentions. He dropped out and transferred to another school. Now he's a retired policeman who is working in security to send me and my siblings to school, and is still doing his best. In my mom's view, he's still handsome, and she calls him a multitude of cutesy nicknames that he pretends to hate. Life is always as tough as normal, but he keeps going. Story 8. I'm way late to the game, but I was the loser who married the prom queen. Dating was interesting because she came from a rich family that gave her everything she wanted. I grew up in a very poor family. We're talking 13 people in a 1-bathroom house poor. She went to house parties and did all kinds of crazy stuff. Meanwhile, I was home hanging out with my nerd friend watching Star Trek. I thought she was kind of snobbish, but turns out she's the kindest person you ever met. We moved in together and she had no concept of money. Her family didn't like her moving in with a guy before they married. They really liked me minus the whole poverty thing, and had her off financially. Sink or swim, baby. Her friends warned me she'd be gone by the time the rent was due and we couldn't afford it. Instead, she got her first job at a department store. While in college, full-time, and we stepped back on everything. She still had a closet full of designer clothes and shoes, but didn't buy anything new for a long time. Stopped eating out every meal. She couldn't cook to save her life, but I could, so we didn't go hungry. Overnight, she became a normal college student. Common people is about her, lol. She finished college, we put her through law school, she made crazy money right after she graduated. It didn't make quite as much, but we were doing well for ourselves. Then the recession started and we were back at square one. She stuck by me again through one of the worst times of my life. We had nothing. We had to move in with my still poor parents for 2 years to dig ourselves back out. We're not rich by any means, but we're doing well now. She still has her prom queen streak. She likes to dress up and buy nice things, but she now goes to thrift stores and garage sales and refuses to pay full price for anything. She got very good at DIYing stuff and made us a beautiful home filled with stuff she made herself, including furniture. I'm very happy. Friends warned me she would take off after college when we went broke. She would cheat on me. She's way out of my league looks-wise. She's not the kind of girl to stick around long. Turns out she's in this for life. We came close to splitting up a few times, but she always reeled us back in. I put her on a pedestal, which probably isn't good, but it works for us. People don't see it, but she does the same to me. She gets overwhelmed easily, but I'm pretty good at fixing stuff when it goes bad. She still experiences things for the first time, and it's really cool to see. For example, she saw an armadillo for the first time and she was crazy excited. She was never into nature, lol. She stuck by me through some really dark times and I will never know why. I don't deserve her and she knows it. But I remember that every morning I wake up and try to do things that make me deserve her. Also, I go to the gym, learned how to dress and do my hair because it's bad being the ugly skinny dude next to the hottest woman in the room. She still looks like she's out of my league, but at least it's not too bad now. Well, she gets flirted with a lot of guys and I can tell it annoys her, or sometimes makes her angry. But I could care less. Our kids adore her and so do my parents. My mom thinks she's helpless because she remembers back when she was helpless, but she's proud of her for how far she came. Now I'm tearing up thinking about it. Story 9. We're divorced now, but my ex-wife was a popular cheerleader in high school. I didn't know much about her younger years when we were dating. I remember laughing when she showed me her yearbook. She said she loved high school and had a great time. She had lots of friends and hung out with the popular kids. I was the total opposite. I hated those years of my life. I told her that she probably wouldn't have liked me if we had known each other as teenagers. I was a computer nerd, who liked painting and graphic design. I was pestered a lot for being socially awkward and really introverted. I was always reading books instead of talking to people. Anyway, my ex-wife isn't doing well. According to her current soon-to-be ex-husband, she had a drinking problem and we divorced, and it's still going on. She had a kid with this other guy a few years ago and ended up getting a DUI. Not her first one. She lost her license and they split up. Because of her problem, he got a protection order against her after some disturbances where she got angry. He's still going through the court system, but they'll probably get full custody of their kid because she's broken a couple of protection orders to go after him. She's on probation now, and I think she's broken that too. Overall, her life sounds like a mess. I feel bad for the guy because he's kind of like me if I'd stayed with her. I feel bad for her too, because I know a lot of her problems come from her messed up childhood. We tried therapy twice, but she was very persistent and didn't want to do it. Story 10. My husband was in the popular crowd in our small high school. He was quiet, super hot, and had lots of friends. I had the hugest crush on him all throughout high school, but was way too intimidated to talk to him in class. It wasn't until 3 or 4 years after graduation when I first started talking to him at the local grocery store where we worked together. He was still way too cool then with his long dark hair and all. He had dropped out of community college and was just working at the store. Now, I'm not saying it was all me, but after we started dating, he did go back and get a degree and finally quit the grocery store life. He has a really nice lab job and enjoys it. We've been married for 6 years, together 13, and we have 2 kids. I think it's so funny now because I thought he was so cool in school, but the real guy is this down-to-earth, Lord of the Rings nerd, which is totally awesome. Story 11. We ended our relationship, but I had a secret romantic relationship with one of the coolest boys in school. He was incredibly handsome and a gifted athlete, the captain of the football team. I got married, had a child, and we didn't speak for a while. Years later, I found him on Facebook and reached out. He made it clear that he wanted to restart our relationship. Despite maintaining my health and looks over the years, he hadn't. The effects of drinks and the challenges of a typical American career had changed him, making him look like the previous generation. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I'd loved him deeply back then. What really stopped me was finding out he believed Barack Obama was from another planet and Michelle Obama was a man. Our political discussions became intense, and he ended up unfriending me on Facebook. He's a sad and lonely man now. His pension was taken away by the Republicans, he has no friends, drives for Uber to get by, and has to sell his boat to pay for medical bills for his failing health. When I close my eyes, I can still see him as he was when we first met and fell in love. I remember prom night vividly. We ditched our girlfriends, took a small boat to an island in the channel, and stayed intimate under the moonlight all night long. That night is etched in my memory forever. Story 12. My mom was very popular and came from a wealthier family. She was the youngest of 3 siblings. My dad, on the other hand, was the youngest of 10 children, and his mom worked extremely hard all the time. They met at a country club where my dad worked in maintenance, and my mom did something else there. Maybe she was a waitress, but I can't remember for sure. My dad was definitely not the type of guy my mom would usually go for. Looking at old photos of him, I can't help but chuckle. Anyway, my mom started dating my dad because she felt sorry for him. She planned to date him for just a week or 2 and then break up with him. She even told her own mom, my grandmother, that was her plan. But my dad managed to win her heart during that short time, and she unexpectedly fell for him. After they had been dating for a while, my dad started to think it was quite the catch and considered looking for someone else. However, before he could do that, he was in an accident while serving as a volunteer firefighter. Guess who was there for him every possible minute? My mom. She worked, went to the hospital, and slept in a cycle the entire time he was there. That's when he realized he'd been about to make a huge mistake by even thinking of leaving her. They got married and went on to have 3 kids, a dog and a cat. They lived a really great life together until my mom passed away 9 years ago. That's the story of how a dorky-looking guy ended up with a popular girl and they lived happily ever after. At least for a good long while. Story 13. My dad was a senior in high school and my mom was a sophomore. My dad was like the cool guy, similar to Danny Zuko from Grease. My mom, on the other hand, was a bit of a nerd. She had big, curly hair, wore thick glasses, and even had headgear for her teeth. My dad used to pay her to do his homework because he was busy with college classes. My mom was married to a really bad guy before she met my dad. She calls him her practice husband. They had my brother, and 2 years later, she became pregnant with me. The guy was putting them through a lot of hardships, so my mom took my brother and ran away from him while she was still pregnant with me. She managed to get an apartment in the town where she went to high school. Every day was a challenge for her. One night she was having a tough time with my brother and me. She ordered a pizza for dinner, and when the pizza delivery guy showed up, my brother was running around causing trouble. My mom handed me the pizza guy and said, "Can you hold this, please?" Well, she chased after my brother. This poor man was standing there with a baby in his arms in the middle of chaos. I've been told he fell in love with me right away, and with my mom about 20 minutes later. I still have the pizza jacket he was wearing that night. They dated for 2 years before my mom agreed to marry him. They've been happily married for 28 years. He was working at a pizza chain that later became Domino's and was going to school to become a teacher. Delivering pizzas was just a side job while he was student teaching at the high school. He wanted to teach auto mechanics to help inspire troubled kids to stay in school and go to college. He became independent from his parents, not because he was having problems at home, but because he was ready to start building his life. By the time he was older, he was taking classes at the community college. He paid my mom to do his high school homework because he was too busy with college. I took a shop class in high school, and he always said high school was a waste of time. After finishing high school and community college, he graduated from the University of Michigan. He went back to community college to keep taking classes for many years. He has so many diplomas and degrees that I can't even count them all. My mom also got a lot of education because of his influence. He saved us. He married my mom and adopted my brother and me. Once they had enough money, we moved to the slums to the upper middle-class suburbs of Chicago. There he taught auto mechanics at a prestigious high school. After my brother and I were on our own and the suburbs had taken away his joy for teaching, they moved back to Michigan. They now live in a beautiful place and 80 acres of land in the woods with their 3 dogs. He has his own workshop in the barn behind their house and teaches auto mechanics at the local community college. He and my mother are very happy with the lives they built for themselves. His shop teacher inspired him and convinced him that he could make his life into whatever he wanted it to be. He made it his goal to be that inspiration for kids. Now, he's living the life he wanted and doing exactly what he set out to do. Story 14. My older brother was senior class president, homecoming king, valedictorian, first chair French horn, captain of the wrestling team, and I'm certain I missed a few. He was also very good looking and nice. He married his high school sweetheart, got admitted to an honors program at a great university, dropped out after freshman year and became a plumber. In plumbing school, he was the best student of his class and won this award that looked like a bronzed pipe wrench. I kid you not. He's been a plumber for 30 years. He also went on to win awards at the state fair with his first woodworking project, a cupboard, I think, and his first clay project, a tea set. He is incredibly well liked, still very fit and handsome, but his body's wearing out from his job. I should add he doesn't do people's toilets. He works in corp offices and plaza fountains and stuff like that. I always wondered what he could have been if he hadn't gone into the trades. To clarify, I mean if he'd gone to engineering or architecture. I respect the trades. The icing on the cake would have been if his name was Mario. Anyways, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 15. My parents were both considered the coolest kids in their school. They were the prom queen and king, and my dad was the captain of the football team. Sometimes when I was younger, my mom would show me their high school yearbook, and I would get upset because I worried it wouldn't be as cool or popular as they were when I went to school. They both grew up in fairly wealthy families, but they didn't really do anything with their lives, so I ended up growing poor in a trailer park. It wasn't until I was almost in my late 20s that I realized they were just losers living in the past. My whole life, I thought they had everything figured out and chose to live the way they did. They got married right after high school without any plan for the future, had kids, and we lived in a trailer my entire life until I was a senior in high school. Then they decided to buy a house in the suburbs just as I was leaving for college. I haven't really talked to them since. They spent my childhood blaming my brother and me for our situation, saying it was our fault we were there because we didn't clean the house enough or get good grades or whatever. Now that they have a new house and both have decent jobs, I just hope they'll have a good inheritance for us. But besides that, they ruined the first 20 years of my life. It's nice to hear about how other people's parents or relatives adjusted well, but my mom still talks about how cool my dad was in high school, and she's almost 60 years old. Story 16. My mom was really book smart in high school, and my dad was a year older and was the tough wrestler that a lot of the guys looked up to. He had the nickname Tiger that everyone would call him. They met in high school and went to college together and ended up married with 3 kids. My dad still has a reputation for being the cool guy of his group, and I periodically still hear all kinds of stories or something crazy from all his friends and family from back in New York. Sometimes I find it weird when I hear someone talk about my dad in reverence like he's a legend. I'm like, this dude? The dude have to beg to put the AC on in the Florida summer heat? This is the guy you're talking about? Story 17. I married the hot girl from school. She was an absolute nightmare. We had 3 kids together, then she started fooling around behind my back. So I left her. I was seeing the kids a couple of times a week, and they'd stayed with me on the weekend each week. All was well until I started dating someone else. Then she flipped and had the nerve to tell me I should stay single in case she changed her mind. I kid you not. I laughed at her and told her the volcano would be a cold place before that ever happened. Then she started playing games. She'd take the kids out when I was supposed to pick them up. I'd have them on a Friday night straight from school and take them back Saturday night. She decided to go away for the weekend without telling me, knowing that it was my new girlfriend's birthday on the Saturday, so I couldn't take the kids back. We made the best of the situation, and the kids went out for a meal with us, and we all had a great time, which angered the ex even more. The following Friday, I went to get the kids from school and was told they weren't in school that day. Went to the ex's place to be told by the neighbors that she'd moved away. All this without a single mention to me or the kids. It took me 5 years to track down the crazy girl, because every time someone would ask about them, she'd find out and move again. Then one week I was off work after having an operation and went shopping with a new girlfriend. I was sitting outside a shop having a cigarette when a teenage girl comes up and asks me if my name is insert name, so I say yes. She says I thought it was and walks away. I thought it strange, so I watched where she went. She walked back to my 2 oldest kids that were missing, so I jumped up and held out my arms and got probably the best hugs I've ever gotten. I found out she'd been telling them for 5 years that I didn't want them. Now I had a new girlfriend. They were living in a homeless shelter 35 miles away from me. This was on a Friday afternoon. I got a phone call that evening saying she'd throw them out of their room and they didn't know what to do. Knowing my devious ex, I called the police and explained the situation to them, and he said to pick them up and call the station, and he'd talk to the kids to make sure they were going of their own free will. We went to the station and asked for the sergeant I'd spoken to and took a seat to wait. He came out to see the kids all cuddled up to me and said I don't even need to ask if they're happy to go with you. I can see from the way they are that they're happy to. He just asked what had happened that day and gave me his business card and wished us good luck. And that's my tale of woe about the hot girl from high school. Story 18. I was the kind of guy who was into the marching band and the debate team, not really into sports. I grew up in a blue-collar town that used to have steel mills. There weren't many families of color there. I ended up marrying someone who was on the high school homecoming court. I was the captain of the cheerleaders, both in college and high school. She was also an honor student and only dated the captains of the sports team. We became pen pals when she moved away, and we stayed friends even though we were far apart. We both secretly kept every letter we wrote to each other over a period of 9 years, and we put them all together when we got engaged. She was always my crush, and she still is. She's beautiful, and I would do anything for her. We've been married for 31 years now. I always say that I'm the one who got the one that got away. I feel blessed. It just goes to show that even geeks and nerds can have it all. Thank goodness we didn't have Instagram or care about being famous in social media back then, because if we did, I might not have ended up with her. Story 19. My mom's story is a bit different. She moved to a new country when she was young, so she was seen as this foreigner, and she was, and still is, extremely beautiful. One time she went to a dinner with her classmates' parents when she met my father. It was the classmate's brother. He was a few years younger than her, but he was immediately taken with her. My father was good-looking, but a bit of an oddball. At that dinner, he declared that he wanted to be with her. She laughed it off and playfully said no, mainly because there was a 7-year age difference between them. My mom went out to date the popular, handsome guy at her school. About 10 years passed, and my father visited her on New Year's Eve. He boldly told her to break up with her boyfriend and be with him instead. She paused for a moment, and then agreed. She ended her relationship with her boyfriend and started dating my father. They've been happily married for 33 years, have 2 kids and 3 grandchildren. Sometimes I still feel a bit embarrassed by how silly they can be together. My father is 6 foot 3 inches tall, and my mom is only 5 foot tall. As for the other guy she dated, he had 3 failed marriages, 5 kids, and was involved with many women over the years. He had a history of drinking and passed away after falling down while intoxicated. People found him a few days later. It happened last year. It's kind of sad when I think about it. Story 20. My brother was the popular guy. Good looking, a good hockey player. This is Canada. Very sensitive and all around charming. He went off to study journalism, scored a nice internship as an actual paid journalist, as opposed to just being a research unpaid worker. Got a contractor gig for the big journal, TM, right off school, and had a somewhat rocky love life. Then after like a year, he dropped journalism completely, went on Tinder for the first time, went on a date with the first girl he swiped, started working retail at a used sports store. A couple years later, he's still with his Tinder date. Just opened his third store from the same franchise he started in. Has been making more money than the one he started at. He gained weight but is still charming, and that's why he's so successful at retail. Literally, my brother went through life with just a series of nat 20 in his charisma checks. Story 21. He was famous as a bit of a troublemaker and a tech whiz. He'd been suspended once for trying to hack the school network. Rumors of what exactly he'd done were legion. I've since learned he was just trying to figure out how the website blockers worked and the teachers overreacted. People liked him because of his bad boy reputation. Plus, he was funny and played the guitar. Teachers never warmed up to him, though, because he was not a good student, and would try to cover up by goofing off in class. In fact, teachers were quite surprised to hear I was going out with him, because I had much better grades and a reputation as a rule follower. He now has a successful cybersecurity career and is much less socially awkward. It also turned out that he's very smart, just not an academic guy. He reads and thinks very hard on a wide variety of topics. We have a little house with lots of computer equipment and many guitars. He's an attractive and supportive spouse. I'd say everything worked out for the best. Story 22. I ended up marrying the popular guy. Even though we're years apart in age and went to different schools, he was an athlete, incredibly handsome, with a great physique. He was the guy all girls wanted to be around and all the guys wanted to be friends with. I, on the other hand, had a tough time in school because I was poor and didn't fit well into the hand-me-down clothes from my mom. I was a size 0 and my mom was a 4XL. It didn't matter if I was pretty underneath, I was seen as poor. After I left home, I could afford makeup, clothes that actually fit me, and proper hygiene products. When I met my husband, we became friends right away. He always had some beautiful girl's number in his phone, and he loved it when it boosted his ego. I was drawn to his smile, his charm, and those eyes. One day he turned those eyes on me, and I still can't believe it. For years I thought his attraction to me was just an ultimate prank. I mean, I've seen and met the women he dated before me. They were always perfectly tanned, polished, well-manicured, from good family backgrounds, with perfect teeth and sunglasses that cost more than my rent. I think he broke a lot of hearts the day he proposed to me. I feel like I still get snide looks from some women at the bar when all he does is brag about his beautiful bride when someone approaches him. He's so innocent about it, too. A girl will approach and engage in conversation, and he'll say something like, "Oh my God, you would love my wife. I think you two would get along so well. You should play some pool with us. Where is she?" He pointed to me, I get a look, and they leave. And I get those looks for the rest of the night. I have to tell him he was being flirted on, and he seems super confused, like he doesn't believe it. My favorite thing about him is that he constantly reminds me that I'm the most beautiful woman he has ever met in his life, second only to his mother, who I think is model-type beautiful as well. He tells me that so often that sometimes I even start to believe him. I mean, I've seen his dating history and the type of women he attracts, so I know his taste. He calls me his trophy wife, but he says it in a loving and playful way. I think he likes the fact that I'm good with money. He was surprised when he realized that he looks just as good in those $20 sunglasses from the gas station as he does in a $400 pair of Ray-Bans. I refuse to buy soda because tea is better for your health and still has sugar and caffeine in it. We both give and share out of love alone, and we can communicate easily about anything and everything. He's charming and I'm sweet. The perfect pair. Story 23. Not quite what was asked, but I was a nerdy kid, skinny, 5'11", 130 pounds, with little to no self-confidence. I married a girl that was a bit nerdy too, kind of quiet and awkward, wouldn't go to the same school or live in the same city. Now we're both in our late 30s, and I guess we aged well because people say we look very good at our age. We're no longer shy or nerdy. It's nice having good-looking women my age who now find me very attractive and compliment me. I definitely didn't have that going on in high school. Well, in my 20s, I guess I became more outgoing and learned to mingle with the ladies better. Became more confident, etc. I now have a beard too, and everyone says it suits me better than being clean-shaven. A few years ago, I attended a friend from high school's wedding. His sister was the popular girl in school. Every guy wanted her. She could have whoever she wanted. When I saw her at the wedding, now in her late 30s, she's aged horribly. It looks like she has problems. You can tell by her mouth. Her teeth look like they have signs from her problems. It was quite sad to see her like that. I definitely hope she gets help. She has no husband or boyfriend. I noticed that the nerdy, geeky, and awkward girls from my high school are now the attractive ones, have successful lives, etc. Funny how life works. Story 24. My spouse was the prom queen and star of our volleyball team. She was offered athletic and academic college scholarships. She also modeled as a young woman. Because of that and how teenage minds work, she had her fair share of haters who thought she must be arrogant. 20 years later, she has been awarded our city's Citizen of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, and also Business of the Year twice. She took over her town's homeless shelter and food bank or soup kitchen and turned them from a rinky-dink setup into an absolute machine. She has incorporated job training, education, mental health and physical health improvement, and full rehabilitation. She also started a cooking school and opened a restaurant and tied the soup kitchen and homeless shelter into it. So, often, homeless people were getting meals cooked by professional chefs. She has incorporated all these to work together. She has a restaurant where a homeless person or somebody down on their luck can come in and eat a meal for free. They can turn in their clothes where they run through a washer or dryer. They can take a shower and leave with another sack meal. Their clothes are clean, any toiletries they need, and any clothing items as well. The awesome thing is that her businesses pay for 90% of it. We aren't depending on government money. I mention that because sometimes people will make a rude comment. Why are my tax dollars paying for all this? We fund it. So that girl that people thought was a typical high school beauty queen with no thinking, degree from a major college and has made her city infinitely a better place to live. Her work has improved the lives of thousands of people. Moral of the story, don't judge a book by its cover. Story 25. Not me, but my parents. My mom was a shy and quiet type. My dad was a little more sociable, but still reserved. He was super popular in high school. Drag raced his hot rod, hosted all the best parties, and his yearbook was covered in notes from girls. He's a really good-looking guy, honestly. I was blessed with absolutely gorgeous blue eyes. My mom was a bit older than him, but they worked together. She got married too young and just went through a divorce. She met my dad and became kind of a wild party girl. She was thin as a twig and also had gorgeous blue eyes, and a wild 80s perm. Dad rocked his mullet. They lived hard and fast. We got married not too long after and bought a house and had us kids. They're still together and doing great. My dad's still a popular guy, but really doesn't show it. He spends more time with his family. They have a great house, great kids, and a great life. Really, they have everything they could have wanted, and I'm happy for them. Story 26. Well, I was the cool guy, but poor. She was the girl from the other side of the tracks, pretty and rich. We were in high school when we met. Everyone warned her parents not to let her marry me, that she should stay away with her own stock and suggested I would take her financially and after the money. We were two young people in love, though, so I ignored the hurtful comments. Her businessman, much older brother, was one of the chief ones making those statements. It's been up and down. I did manage to have a problem because of bad anxiety, but I'm trying and sober recently. She did get taken for her money, though, but by her own brother. When the last parent passed, he went into greed mode, hired good lawyers and made secret moves and took her for everything. She still talks to him, but it made it clear to him what a greedy person he is. So he doesn't come around but calls her from time to time. We're still married, though, with a wonderful child and are still making our way. We're the only couple that met in high school and still together, though. Everyone else is older and single or been through a couple marriages. She's still asleep at the moment, but we'll be having breakfast together shortly. Is how it's going, I guess. Pretty boring story, but it's honest. We're 40, though, and very much in love. Story 27. My husband and I didn't go to the same school, but he was the popular, goofy gym guy who graduated with high honors and certifications. All the guys wanted to be and all the girls wanted to date. We just entered our 30s. Are currently living in the city he went to high school in, and he still gets stopped everywhere by people who he went to school with. They're always super happy to see him and ask for his phone number or Snapchat, etc. And when my husband introduces me, then people start telling me stories about how cool he was in school and usually tell me a story. My husband is still a sweetheart and goofball. He's not as social as he was back then. He doesn't go to the gym as often, but that's probably for the best since his body isn't able to handle his old workout routine. And he's currently a house husband with a lot of hobbies.
Girls who took notes using 50 different colored pens. Where are you now? Do you still continue to write using all those colors? A grade 9 science teacher forced us all to do it. He said that by color-coding everything, you understood the material better because you had to think about it longer to color-code it and understand what other things it associated with. Not just zone out and go into transcribing mode. He also made us do the end-of-unit study guides. They had to be color-coded, a set amount of drawings and unit words and definitions. The drawings were doodles based on things in the unit. He would mark them and hand them back before the test, which was great because he knew if he needed to help us with something before we bombed the test. He was also an MMA fighter with cauliflower ears and not the type of guy you would expect to demand rainbow-colored notes. I can promise you that it worked well for most of the class. Human memory works through encoding. The more codes attached to a memory, the easier it is to recall. By attaching specific colors to specific topics in the notes and by requiring drawings related to the notes, the teacher was greatly increasing the chances for the students to successfully retrieve the encoded memories. Also, taking up the notes and marking them before giving the test was another great idea. It's been shown that retest is among the best strategies to enhance learning, because you get to try your hand at the information, see what you get wrong, and improve. All of this increases your exposure to the information and also adds new codes. I had a professor in college that would give unit tests on day one of the unit. He would inevitably do poorly. Most people failed. Then she'd teach the unit over the next few weeks and then re-administer the test. The new grade replaced the old. It worked incredibly well. Wow, that was an awesome teacher. Story 2. I work in an office setting now and still like to use different colored pens for things, if the situation allows it. I don't know if this will make sense to anyone else, but I love colors. I especially like the idea of colors being associated with ideas, personalities, names, or themes. Oh, today's Monday. I think orange is a good Monday color. Pink is Friday, green is Wednesday. I love how Windows 10 allows me to change the colors of tiles so that my computer seems more like me. I'm constantly changing the colors of my Apple Watch face. I don't know. I think I have a problem. I do just want to add that I'm fairly certain I do not have synesthesia. But as someone that does, and from my very limited knowledge of it, it isn't a voluntary association of colors like mine probably would be. I always automatically like to associate stuff with color or mood, but I don't know that it happens involuntarily. Think of what I do as more of what happens in the video game Persona 5, where each character has a color associated with them intentionally. I love that kind of stuff. Story 3. I actually still continue to write using all those colors. I'm now a professional scientist, and it makes my lab notebook pretty. Plus, frankly, often it's really helpful to have multiple colors. I also like having a bunch of colors for seminar speakers because it somehow keeps me more interested to choose a different color for a different speaker. Honestly, though, the core reason is the main reason I enjoy multiple colors is because I often feel the secret to success against procrastination is negotiating with your inner 5-year-old. Okay, you need to write these notes, but if you do, you can choose what color to write them in. You might as well find a little happiness in the world where you can. Story 4. Doctor here. The first week of med school was hell because I didn't have time to switch pens during lecture. I changed to typing my notes out and recording the lecture and then highlighting the notes later with different colored highlighters. Or rewriting if I had time, which some note-taking programs were intuitive with changing font colors quickly. I can't remember the program I used. This was on a Mac and the icon was a unicorn. What was actually nice about this is that I could listen to the lecture again at my own pace, which was something I'd never done before. My study group could pause and discuss confusing topics if we needed, or we could look up YouTube videos and stuff to explain things better. Don't let med school dim your rainbow. She's probably the only doctor with good handwriting. Story 5. My girlfriend was one of those girls. Nowadays, she only uses one color to take notes, but she leaves dozens upon dozens of color-coded tags in every book that she reads. Whether it's fiction or non-fiction, those are all indexed according to an arcane system that the likes of mortal men may not comprehend. Although if you should unwarily run your thumb along the rainbow plastic, the resulting sound will resemble that of a dark, eldritch chant. I should pause for a moment here to offer a disclaimer. This woman's personality has always been very, very different from that of the girls who simply wanted their notes to look pretty. While she definitely cares about aesthetics and has a great eye for them, her color-based note-taking system is actually meant as a method of organization. Put another way, if she had been a horse girl, it would have been because she needed a vehicle that would run on oats. If she'd been a volleyball girl, it would have been because she had figured out a sports-based method of conquering the planet. Anyway, as for where she is now, well, the truth sounds like an exaggeration. She grew up to become one of the most stunningly beautiful women on the planet, coming into her own at around the same time that she was getting her doctorate degree in a hard science. Following that, she decided that she needed more of a challenge, so she became a financial analyst at one of the most successful investment management firms on the planet. She attributes her personal success to how much she reads, and I've already described her reading process. His girlfriend sounds impressive, and he sounds like a very supportive boyfriend. Story 6. It's my time to shine. I was really bad at taking notes. I failed out of 7th grade, I scraped by in high school. I got into the lowest tier university in the state only because they automatically accepted anyone with an ACT score of over 291. Then I flunked out. Twice. I eventually did graduate with a degree that I never used, but it was with a 2.7 GPA. This is just to demonstrate how awful I was at note-taking, studying, or anything involving recording and retaining information of the academic persuasion. Then I decided I was really tired of living below the line of poverty. I got a master's in science. This required being at the very least passable at recording and retaining academic information. This is where the copyist color-coded pens came in, and the color-coded highlighters, and the color-coded sticky notes, and the color-coded accordion folders. I was finally able to properly record information in a way I could retain, which led to my appointment as research assistant, then contributions to multiple academic publications, and ultimately, a dream job at the R&D division of a CERN computer company. Colored pens got me out of poverty and gave me the ability to help provide for my family. Story 7. I graduated with my PhD. I still have a love of extremely neat notes with color coding and fonts and neatly drawn graphs. My licensing exam study binder was a thing of beauty, and I actually wound up making a PowerPoint presentation for last year's residents in the exam and study tips, complete with several personalized memes. This stuff brings me so much joy I still have about 8 different colors of pens in my office. Although now all my reports are typed and have to conform to a particular aesthetic, so I'm stuck. I do, however, now have a handmade stone pen courtesy of my father-in-law, and a very cool found pen made from trimmed branches of a 100-year-old olive tree that my husband gifted me. So no more neat colors, but my love of excellent writing materials live on. Story 8. I'm a graphic designer now. I used, and still use, different colors for 2 main reasons. Number 1, easy scan and logic. Using multiple colors helped me scan my notes or text much faster. I remember in school I used pink for titles, purple for subtitles, green for examples, pencils for notes, and red for important remarks. If I needed to find the example for lesson 5, I'd just look for the green. Number 2, visual memory. I remember when I had history exams, where I needed to memorize big chunks of data. I used to color code my paragraphs so that if I get stuck in an exam, I try to remember the color of that lesson, and that helps me remember the words. In summary, using colors in my texts was basically for typographic hierarchy, which is a big part of my work now. Knowing what information to bold, underline, change color. Story 9. So I had 50 different gel pens at all times to use during my bio and chem classes. I found the colors useful, especially for memorizing complex chemical reactions that had multiple moving parts or for complex signaling pathways. That had several ligands and receptors whose names were just a series of numbers and letters. Using them during class was a little obnoxious, and I definitely used them all the time during my study sessions or pre-lecture reviews in which I took notes and materials from the books. I also used them to take notes in longer papers from journals, for which I developed a color-coded system to organize my thoughts in the material, i.e. blue for general notes, pink for questions, red for what I would have done. Although I'm no longer in school, anytime I'm required to dive back into the awesome world of biology, I do the same thing. When I read papers in my own free time, I still use them to take notes. I'm currently interviewing for jobs in my field, and when I get one, I will have my colored pens. Everybody learns and memorizes differently, but I found my use of color as a visual learner helped me memorize and understand material so much more than before, when I would just write and do anything in black ink. During class discussions and exams, I could actually recall the exact section of my notes I was being asked about by remembering the colors I used for that info. Story 10. I'm a soon-to-be speech-language pathologist. I have bad ADD. If I don't take my meds, I cannot even watch a television show without losing focus. Color-coding my notes like that is one of the reasons I definitely exceeded the expectations of the original doctor who diagnosed me at 9. He told my parents to not expect much from me in terms of academic achievement. Well, approximately 20 years later, I not only graduated high school, but I have a BA with honors. I'm soon to get my MS CSLP, and I'm considering going for a PhD, all in the pursuit of helping the other kids that have been told they have no potential or will fail. I'm very fortunate that I had some other professional, including my mother who was an SLP, who believed in me and refused to take the no potential as an answer. Teach us differently because we learn differently. Give us strategies and support while we learn to use the strategies, and watch us soar. But back to the notes. It helped me organize my thoughts, connect ideas or content across pages, and generally just internalize the material. It was after taking extensive in-class pencil notes, though, so much more forgiving for a squirrely gal like me. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 11. Yes, still using all those colors. It's helped me professionally, actually. This level of organization and control is my entire personality. Lol. No matter what job I've had, I've always quickly made my way up the ranks to at least assistant manager, if not manager. A branch or store or restaurant or department or whatever has always run the best and smoothest with the most production and happiest and most efficient staff. Also, the most detailed and organized record-keeping ever. I've adapted my own style and used it to implement policies that carry on to be used long after I've left. I know where everything is. All different files and subjects, etc., are all color-coded and easy to find. I've seen a few saying they're journalists, though, which is funny because I'm actually going back to school at 34 and hoping to do a degree in journalism, as writing has always been my passion. Story 12. It wasn't decorative. It was for easier future reference. In math, for example, explanations of a concept were done in black, examples in blue, and the most important information was in orange. In simpler classes, literature or history, generic information was in black. Something notable, such as a name or title, would be in red. Important dates or concepts in orange, etc. In the simpler classes, the act of physically writing and switching pens to distinguish between filler and critical information ensured that I rarely had to check my notes, even in college. In science classes, the system made it simple to find the bit of information I needed while studying, and the compartmentalized color system seemed to help with retention in any case. Professionally, I use indentation in the occasional box when taking notes by hand, but don't bother with multiple colors. I rarely need the sort of planning that might lend itself to a complex color system outside of work, but I still have a rainbow of pens at the ready just in case. Of course, I'm male, so I don't actually fit the criteria. Story 13. I just got a job at a large corporate dental office. I only got hired with zero previous experience because they just cleaned house and fired every manager there, and the only 2 receptionists still there had already given 2-week notices before I got hired. So the first day training, it was me and a younger girl with multiple colored pens to take notes with. I have never in my life met someone with as much work ethic and organizational skills as this girl. Within 4 months, we had the office in better condition than I believe it ever was before us, and trust me, it was mostly all her. But she used different colors for each dentist, different colors for insurance claims that needed to be sent from the colors used for financial plans needed for the patients. Honestly, I'm sold on the different color thing. Maybe too much in most situations, but in that time we walked into, I could see that it was a very useful resource to use. Story 14. Wait, what, other people do this too? I hated school. If I had English class, there was a very nasty teacher who would take pride in making children feel like trash. I couldn't spell very well or read. I have dyslexia. She knew this and would constantly read my work out in front of the class with all spelling errors and say if she couldn't read or understand it, how were other people too? She'd scribble across my work if she couldn't read the first word, destroying the whole page of work. So just to anger her off, I started to write in yellow pen only in her class. Well, yellow pen and white paper is very hard to read. She used to scream at me she couldn't read it. So I used to say you couldn't read it before, so what's the difference now? She'd never have an answer, and would just walk away. Started to like English after that. Story 15. I do drafting work for construction or engineering. I'm known for my colorfully coded models. I also not only still use the colored pens, though only 4 colors, black, red, blue, green, but I get to insist all my engineers learn to do their markups in color coding. We can actually clarify and be much more efficient when using a company standard color coding system for iterative design work. Current system. Pens black, initial design, or notes. Red, additions or changes. Green, remove or delete. Blue, internal note or comment for drafter. Highlighters. Yellow is engineer as reviewed. Blue is complete by group 1. Orange, completed by group 2. Pink, reviewed or completed by CAD or BIM manager. This system holds whether the work is done in hard copy, Adobe, or Bluebeam. There's always wiggle room and a grace period for teaching new hires, but overall, the system does limit the time spent trying to decipher notes between staff. Story 16. I'm a guy and I've done this since middle school. I work in a conservative professional environment and it raises an occasional eyebrow, but more so makes me popular with people who forget their pens. Maybe people think I'm autistic. It's useful in a lot of ways. You can take sensitive notes without explicit reference to what is implied by a color, and it's generally easier to reference when you have a lot of pages. Your brain makes connections subconsciously. I combine color with a lot of other techniques to make sure my notebook is really only capable of interpretation by me. Also, it's fun to troll coworkers by matching pen color to post-it note color. Orange ink and orange post-it is particularly infuriating. It's also funny to bring up someone's pen theft, borrowed and not returned at an otherwise dry meeting, pretending that it was of great importance, and using it as a blank intro to a technical counter-argument. Story 17. I had a zipper bag dedicated to gel pens. I took notes in all sorts of different color patterns and even writing types. I didn't do it by coding by color. I did it because I love Lisa Frank and rainbows and Punky Brewster. Not really sure how to label myself as anything other than a jack of all trades. I went to culinary school, which led to repetitive motion injuries, and spent the past 9 years since college being an on-again, off-again baker or chef or cake decorator, all while learning to be a Verizon phone rep or tech support agent, a caregiver to senior citizens or people with Alzheimer's, a waitress, and have done or experienced basically every section of a grocery store, and am now an optician, because my injuries have become too much for me to handle and work a proper food service job. Essentially, I used my love of colors as a cake decorator or baker until now. And now I code things with colored folders too. So, story 18. I had undiagnosed ADHD in school and used multiple colors for notes and such. My notes weren't actually organized, but I had a color system for various different things. And also so that my margin doodles could be extra pretty. I spent about 10 years working for a company that handles the fancy back end of large conference calls. Color coding was really handy for me on both of the main tasks I did there. It's been 2 years since I worked there. I can still name all of the colors I used and their purpose. And yes, I did end up using the whole dang rainbow. I had a dream or nightmare once where a supervisor came up to my desk and said, "You don't have enough pens," and dumped a shoebox of pens and crayons on my desk. In the dream, I knew he meant to annoy me, but I was delighted. There were so many. Right now, I'm not in a situation where I use color coding and my pens and markers languish. Story 19. So I never took notes until I had a class in high school where we were required to do multicolored notes. Simply taking notes was worth like 15% of our grade. 3 things to say about the multicolored note-taking process. I never studied in my life. Still didn't study with multicolored notes, but I absolutely remembered things better simply by the process of writing it down, specifically in organized colors. You become surprisingly proficient at it. You get a system down about what goes in what color, and you get a rhythm with switching pens. To this day, I have to organize data in a color-coded manner. Looking at spreadsheets just doesn't make sense to me until it's chunked. In general, I format and organize just about anything I'm working on. If you go through my post history, you can see that I even do it with things as trivial as talking about football on Reddit. Bottom line is, it makes things easier to digest, both as you're writing and for you, or anyone else coming behind you to review it. Story 20. PM here. You can pry my 30-pack of Stabilo .88 color pens from my cold fingers. Dry erase 12-month calendar, color-coded. Dry erase label magnets for the 12-month calendar, color-coded. Dry erase markers, color-coded. Chapters, outlines, to-do lists, assignments, color-coded. Excel spreadsheet, color-coded. Don't get me started on the new 10-year-old Office theme. 3 grays and 3 blues? Who? Why? I like the yellow but need the rest of Roy G. Biv. Now I have to revert back to Office 7 to 10 color theme with every new workbook, and who knows how it'll look on someone else's machine. I still long for the giant pack of Sharpies but have never taken the plunge. Apparently there's a 115 count box. Maybe I'll ask Santa for that this year. Color is a spice of life and it helps organize my life at a glance. Story 21. I was a gel pen gal. I still use different colors to underline, circle, or draw connections between details on a page. It is incredibly helpful. I'm trying to see the big picture. Not sure if it works because I learned how to learn this way, or if it would be the same level of helpful trying it for the first time now as an adult. P.S. I'm a nurse. I also use a pen with 4 different colors of ink for patient reports. I'll start with blue when I'm getting info, then everything that changes throughout the day will be in red. Anything else in black or green. Easy to tell what's new or updated after a busy day of scrambling.
Where's the loser from your school now? He has an Emmy.
He was made fun of by everyone, including me, for being incredibly passionate about photography and film and having the humongous jewels to take it to continue putting his stuff out there. He's far and away the most successful person from my class and gets to do what he loves every day. I'm super happy for him. Story 2. It's kind of sad that I can just refer to their Wikipedia pages. Michael Fay. In 1994, a court in Singapore sentenced an American teenager, Michael Fay, to be caned for violating the Vandalism Act. This caused a temporary strain in relations between Singapore and the United States. Several months after returning to the United States, Fay suffered burns after a butane incident. He was subsequently admitted to the Hazelden Rehabilitation Program for butane misuse. He claimed that butane made him forget what happened in Singapore. In 1996, he was cited in Florida for a number of violations, including careless driving, reckless driving, not reporting a crash, and having an open bottle of alcohol in a car. Later, in 1998, still in Florida, Fay was arrested for possessions of substances, charges to which he confessed but was acquitted because of technical errors in his arrest. Jeremy Strohmeyer, born October 11, 1978, is an American convicted criminal serving 4 consecutive life terms for mistreatment of Iverson. October 20, 1989 to May 25, 1997, a prima donna resort and casino in Primm, Nevada on May 25, 1997. The case drew national attention by focusing on the safety of children casinos and on the revelation that Strohmeyer's friend, David Cash Jr., said he saw the crime in progress but did not stop it. Story 3. Nobody knows. We tried contacting him for a reunion and it was impossible to find him. I really don't want to call him a loser, though. He was probably suffering from undiagnosed or badly treated ADHD or anxiety or something. This was 20 years ago, and seeing a psychiatrist was shameful and something to be hidden. He was friendly. Never had a problem with anyone. He just wasn't capable of going through a badly structured school setting. It's really sad. Some people are naturally good at school, and some just aren't, even though there's nothing wrong with them fundamentally as human beings. But the system is set up so that success in school determines a large part of your life in the future, and that's pretty unfair, honestly. Couldn't have said it better myself. Story 4. It's me. Everyone else from my class went on to get a professional career and family. Meanwhile, I got cancer. Had a stroke. My disability payments got wrongfully stopped, and I'm going through an appeal right now. So all my old school friends are living it up in nice houses with their families with hope for the future, while I'm starving, in danger of losing the roof over my head, sick and suffering side effects from my meds, all alone with nothing to look forward to. So yeah, I was considered a loser in school because I liked rock music while the other kids liked R&B and Boyzone. Now, I'm a loser in real life, as multiple people have delighted in telling me. I don't even join my old school Facebook page because I'm too embarrassed to let them see how my life has turned out. Story 5. She's a published author of multiple books and crushing it in the passionate romance genre. She used to let me read stuff she wrote in a deeply boring class we were required to take and shared a 2-person table in. It's the only thing that got me through. She was really talented. I'd have never said she was a loser, though. Just a very earnest girl in a larger body whose social development skills hadn't really kicked in yet. She was smart and sweet and gentle. I asked her to come sit with my friends at lunch a lot, but she'd never come over. Just ate alone every day, scribbling in notebooks. I'm really glad she found her path to happiness and success. Romance books are my thing, but I pre-order every one of her books as a show of support. You're a very good friend. Story 6. Passed away. I learned it quite recently. I couldn't repress some feeling of joy. It was a loser, but a violent loser. Like, he couldn't stand people who take studies seriously and succeed. He quit school quite early, but is still roaming around the school. He had a bike and was intimidating all kids going home, including me by a cruel technique. He'd force us to climb on his bike so he could take us home, but it was like a sorrowful journey. We'd cross roads at full speed without looking for any car. How anyone hasn't been ended is beyond me. This guy gave me nightmares. Then one day, he disappeared. I grew up, had modest success in my education, and landed a good job. One day while I was waiting for the bus, he came to me. He recognized me. I didn't at first, but when he talked to me, I recognized him. I wasn't scared. We were already adults at this time. He looked poor and dirty. He genuinely thought we were friends when we were young. He told me that life was hard for him, that he was struggling. But as the discussion went on, I learned that he spent his life in bars, drinking, and doing nothing of his life. He asked me for help. He needed money. To get rid of him, I gave him the equivalent of $1. Just enough for a coffee. I left disappointed, but somehow happy to have this bit of money. He was the kind of guy who was pure schmuck. There was nothing good about him. I knew that if I felt less confident, he would pester me or rob me of my money. I felt I wasn't scared. He passed away in his 40s, and I'm sure no one in this earth felt an atom of sadness. You sure do have a lot of hatred in your heart, don't you?
Story 7. I was a loser in high school. Stinky clothes, wore plastic grocery bags on my feet under my shoes when it rained. Sometimes went to school barefoot. Pretty hungry a lot. Slept in a church youth room I had gotten a key for and would sneak in after hours. Some people were cruel to me, but I was pretty naive about it, so it didn't stick and I don't have any hard feelings about it. There were some really nice people too. I was in a band, but that failed after 9 or 10 years. The marriage failed after about 5 or 6 years. I pursued a dream of opening up my own music lessons and recording studio, but that failed too after about 8 years. Pretty spectacular failures too. Very humbling. Back to square one style, destitute, stealing food from the grocery store level failure. So these days, I've been doing okay. I've worked with special needs kids for the last 10 years. Got my Braille certificate, got a bachelor's degree in elementary education, and I'm working on my master's in ad tech right now. Literally doing what most people are doing in their 20s, 20 years too late. Better late than never, I guess. Well, it's better than most people I know, having achieved nothing in their life. Story 8. It was me. I was the loser of my high school who had hardly any friends and was overweight and constantly pestered. 8 years after graduation, I now live in a big city. I have a 3-bedroom apartment right in the middle that overlooks the entire city, a good job with good benefits, a good group of friends. There's plenty of time for my hobbies and passions. Lost a ton of weight and got myself in shape by toning out and gaining muscle, and now I'm constantly getting compliments on how great I look. And I have an active enough intimate life that I feel content. So he's doing pretty damn great. Story 9. I'm still firmly an underachiever who's now a courier for a grass company and has put on 50 to 60 pounds since joining said company in April. 28-year-old with absolutely no path to follow or forge. I'm a one-trick pony. I can gain significant weight and lose it fairly quickly. I'm decent at endurance sports. Running, cycling. My brain chemicals mess me up eventually and we have to start the cycle all over again. Mom's basement. Loner. Typical Redditor, I know, but sometimes the tiny voice in the back of my mind tells me we're absolutely better and meant for better, but I can never seem to figure it out. Oops. Too much information. Whatever. I'm in the mental gutter. That's where I'm at. Crap is so much different just 90 days ago. Lol. Story 10. Same place he was when we graduated. Living with his parents, having his mom take care of nearly everything. It was the younger of 2 kids, and when his older sibling passed away, his mom never really dealt with the loss in a healthy way and became way overprotective of her baby. I remember at age 12, he briefly joined my soccer club and trained with us for a few weeks. Just when it looked like he might be coming out of his shell a bit, he got a minor injury and his mom immediately pulled him from the team because she didn't want him playing such a violent and dangerous sport. And I'll repeat, this was a soccer team. Now he's in his mid-30s, working a go-nowhere job, but basically incapable of functioning as an adult. He can't cook because his mom prepares all his meals. He doesn't know how to do laundry or clean anything because his mom does all that. If he needs an appointment for the dentist or the barber, his mom books it for him. He even still lives in the same bedroom he grew up in as a kid. Story 11. Everyone is going to say that they were the loser, but I actually was. By the time junior year rolled around, I had no friends. I spent my lunch breaks walking around aimlessly or eating my lunch in a bathroom stall. I blended into the background. On purpose, unless someone decided I was an easy target to publicly mock or to make up school tormentors jokes. My clothes all had holes in them because we were poor and lived in a trailer. Had severe acne as well, and nothing over the counter worked. If I accidentally made eye contact with a girl, I would get laughed at and be on the receiving end of that look. I had terrible grades and failed 10th grade, so the other kids made fun of me for being stupid on top of my looks, etc. My teachers openly disliked me, especially the female ones. From what I can gather, pretty much everyone in my life back then just expected me to end myself. I'm now a mechanical engineer making far more than the household average for the area I live in. I own multiple sports cars and motorcycles. I've traveled overseas for recreation and am in extremely good physical condition. I've gotten cosmetic surgeries and turned girls down that approach. Things are far from ideal, but I feel like I've clawed up from a pretty precarious situation. The thing is, I still don't forgive anyone from back then. Yeah. It shows that you have a big ego now. Story 12. I was the loser. Had a terrible home life full of all kinds of cruelty that no one knew about. Years later, I went to years of therapy to resolve my traumas. I reported my mistreatments to the police, and now I'm a father to a very funny little girl, and I've been with my beautiful partner for years now. I'm on my 3rd home, and I do well at work. Working and pursuing my dream of being a professional writer, or working in film, or working in gaming, or being a software engineer. Life is really cool now. I feel like I'm a grown-up version of kid me instead of a walking trauma scab, and young me would be thrilled that I have a nice fiance and a lot of Star Wars and Marvel movies and TV shows. I turned my life around. Story 13. The one that most would consider a loser is probably me. I was a loner, listened to metal, played video games. You get the picture. Now I'm a doctor. Have an awesome wife, just bought our new apartment, and life's going pretty well, actually. The one that I myself considered our loser was the guy that pestered me. He was very self-conscious, which he masked by putting others down. Nowadays, he has a pretty nondescript position in his father's company after he was let go in the company of a friend of his father's. The only thing I would change is to go back and tell my younger self that your social status in school doesn't matter. Compare this guy to the guy in Story 11, and you can really tell who the insecure one is. Story 14. I dropped out of high school in the 9th grade and later returned to repeat the year. Unfortunately, I vandalized the school and was expelled from the district, resulting in community service and youth probation. Everyone in the school hated me, and I was known as the bad kid because we destroyed the HVAC system for 6 months. No air conditioning from January until April at least. $80,000 in damage. For my community service, I worked on various IT projects for a community youth organization in a small town. This experience allowed me to advance my career through various companies, eventually securing a job in IT at a different school district. I've come full circle. Story 15. Well, it was really a group of us. Got nicknamed because of the stupidest one of the group and my best friend at the time. That guy last I saw is still living with his mom on her couch, just playing video games, showering maybe once a month. Not an exaggeration. Not sure about the one who vanished mid-high school. One moved to Alabama and, I'll leave it there for her. For the last two, my now best friend is happily in a healthy relationship with his boyfriend who both work in HVAC. They are so adorable together. And for my friend, he's come a long way from being an introvert to the loudest one in the room. Love him so much. And for me, I'm now the marketing sales supervisor at a nice pottery shop, engaged to the love of my life. I met all the way back in middle. The happiest I've been and the healthiest weight I've ever been. Weighed 230 to 240 pounds in high school, and now I weigh 145 pounds. Much love to y'all. Another humble one. Story 16. Well, if it was me, then I would say I'm doing my best. I rent a house, but it's in a desirable neighborhood. I moved out of the sticks and into a mid-sized city. I stayed off substances and had 2 degrees. I still get to see my stepkids after their mom, and I split amicably. I'm employed, starting to have a social life again. Hot brown women tell me I have gorgeous eyes. I was likely a loser in the sense of a successful nerd voted most likely to succeed, but a grand total of 0 friends. The users didn't like me because I was a good student, even if I was friendly with them and hated the same stuff. The smart but preppy kids didn't like me because I was poorer but smarter than them. The weird kids found me weird, but not the weird way they were. For example, I wasn't a weird kid in a group like goths who I was friendly with. I was on the baseball team, but not a great player, so the athletes tolerated me, but I wasn't in. The rule breakers respected that I also broke rules, but hated that my own track for college status set me apart. Socially, I think I was the loser, even if I was only 1 out of 7 to go to 4-year college in my otherwise failing school. It was a small graduating class, but 7 out of 89 is still pretty small. Story 17. She lives in a no-name town in Virginia. Been arrested more times than most of fingers and toes. She lost the main custody of her kid. Father is from VA, so rich daddy moved her closer to the kid. The heartbreaking thing is, she has a master's in international business. She's very intelligent, but she has a drinking problem. I'm convinced she has an untreated mental health condition. She was recently arrested for possession and/or intent to sell in VA. She can't help herself. Daddy always bails her out, takes care of all the legal crap. After many years of trying to help her, we're no longer close friends, but I still feel for her and always hope she gets on a better path. Story 18. I found out last month he's in jail and has transitioned to being a girl. He is now she. I'm unclear on how far along the transition was, but there is photographic evidence of her living as a woman, and Facebook is clear and open about the hormone therapy she was on, which I'm sure has been cut off. But they put her in a men's jail in South Carolina, I think. That can't be a good time. He grew up in California. I can only imagine his life story after high school, but in high school, he was a loser because he dressed like a slob and often smelled. Had no friends, did poorly in class and couldn't do a single push-up in PE. As far as I know, the regular oppressors at school didn't even bother with him. Everybody basically just kept their distance. Story 19. My high school had a graduating class at about 100, and nearly half were already parents by the time we graduated, including the night school kids. I think only maybe 5 of us have degrees. The hard substance users are gone, multiple people ending it all from the kids who were already really struggling with mental health. And the class president is a depression prevention advocate that uses basketball camps to teach kids. I was probably the weird kid. I was in a cult throughout high school. I got out, was homeless for a bit, went to college, moved 12 hours away, and have a beautiful family. You were in a what in high school? Story 20. Honestly, passed away. Ended it all. A good few years ago now. Not really sure what the deal was or where life took him, but heard on the grapevine that he'd ended it all. A small part of me feels guilty about whether any of us could have done more to help him, but it was hard work, hard to like, generally unpleasant, and made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with any of us outside of the government-mandated hours with which he had to attend school with us. Maybe there was more to his life than we ever knew. There usually is, but it wasn't the school loser from lack of the rest of us trying to help him. There just came a point where even the most determined and patient gave up. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. Story 21. I had the worst grades and dropped out right before I turned 16. Started smoking grass at 14, one of the first to do so in high school, which earned me the mostly undeserved reputation as a user. I did try other stuff, but never got hooked on anything. I was from a single-parent, lower-middle-class family. Mother's job transferred states when I was 16 and kind of allowed me to reset my life. Still struggled to find my way early on, but had an epiphany at 21 and decided to make a change. Went to community college and then university, studying physics. Graduated at 26 with a BS in physics. I'm 37 now, a senior engineer in the semiconductor industry, happily married to a woman I started dating back when I was 20 and floating through life. We just had our second kid and are firmly upper middle class. I think everyone would be shocked, but I only talked to maybe 3 people I went to high school with. I ended up back in my home city because, well, it's in Silicon Valley and the jobs are here, but I have run into a small handful of people I knew and I pretended I didn't see half of them. Story 22. She worked at the YMCA for a little while after high school. Now she works for a consulting culty company that specializes in management strategies or something like that. I tried to understand what the company does, but honestly sounds like a scam company, which wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Almost 30, still never had a boyfriend or any type of romantic partner, living in the same town we grew up in, with her Facebook page just videos that she tagged her parents in. She doesn't hang out with anyone that I can see, friends or family-wise, except her parents. Everyone in her high school friend group scattered as soon as high school was over to get as far away from the town as quickly as they could and start their lives fresh, which she never launched. Story 23. He got a job with Apple just out of high school. They paid for his college. To be fair, he was a really great guy. He was just so smart that he didn't know how to interact with people. My dad was that kind of person, so I knew how to talk to him. Not many people could tolerate him, though, which is understandable. On the outside, he was a pretentious know-it-all who never turned down an opportunity to tell someone they were wrong. Inside, though, he truly thought he was engaging with people in conversation. He was genuinely confused that people hated him. He remembered tiny details about everyone and would try to bring it up in conversation, and everyone thought that was creepy and weird. He just really cared and paid attention. Colin, if you ever see this, Alex thought you were a great person and I really hope life is treating you well. Story 24. Living right next door to me. Alcoholic, mid-50s, trashy wife with trashy kids. The trash flies into our yard and the house is never maintained. Christmas lights are still up. Lots of cars in the driveway. Hundreds of other alcoholic losers from high school telling him how great he is via Facebook. I changed my Wi-Fi code to loser's address, Clampets. It's a decent neighborhood, but they stick out like, well, a couple of middle-aged drinkers. His wife had cancer and she couldn't afford to take 2 months off during radiation treatment because he couldn't hold down the fort for 2 months without breaking into his beer money, or car payments. All of the cars are new. He also flexed on my 75-year-old mother, raised his voice, chest puffed up. Like, really, dude? Yeah, he was a loser then and he's a loser now. But he has cars and beer. Can't wait for him to get popped for a DUI. He might actually have to grow the heck up. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 25. There was a super unpopular kid from a poor family in high school. He was a try-hard-to-impress people and a class clown, but all it did was alienate him further. People picked on him for being poor. They would invite him to non-existent parties and he'd show up to some random person's house and the homeowner would be like, "Who the heck are you?" No one liked him and he never did himself in favors with his attitude and demeanor. After high school, he was useless for a few years. Never went to college, kept his same persona. I lost track of him and did not know what he was up to these days. Apparently he said F this place and moved to Wisconsin, of all places. Worked in the canning factory for years, kept his head down, did his job, went back to school, got some promotions, moved to a corporate office in Chicago. He is apparently now a millionaire, mostly from YOLOing his retirement into GameStop. No, I'm kidding. He actually told me he lost half his retirement doing that and isn't a millionaire yet. We reconnected when I posted on social media that I was visiting family in Chicago. He sent me a DM saying he lived downtown and I should hit him up while in town. I was one of the few who didn't pick on him, so we had an evening out in the town getting intoxicated, talking crap about all the super popular kids at school who turned into actual losers decades later. Story 26. I had a pretty large class, so it's hard to say he was the biggest loser. But he was always the fat kid in our class and made his identity about smoking grass from about 8th or 9th grade on. He also spent almost every waking free moment playing Xbox. He went to college for about half a semester, dropped out, delivered pizzas for a few years, got into harder substances and got skinny because of it. He has since gained the weight back and stops doing the hard stuff. He's currently in his mid-30s, lives in his mother's basement, plays Xbox constantly, and works as a person that receives recyclables at a recycling center part-time. Story 27. We had a new starter at our school in year 9. My friend and I tried to say hello and make them feel welcome, but got a response of, "I don't need any friends." Okay, cool. That's your prerogative. They went and hung out with the anime kids in the library and were a real a-hole for the rest of school. I'm not against anime or hanging out in a library at all, but they were very gatekeepery in their attitude and looked down on me for reading Western comics. Anyway, fast forward 10 years later, and they've put up a link on social media for GoFundMe to buy themselves a new gaming computer, fund a holiday for themselves and their parents, and to pay for their gender transition. Apparently, depression has made it impossible to get a job, even though the country where I live makes access to mental health service quite accessible to those on welfare, and they haven't done anything to feminize their appearance. They just seem to be using mental health and gender dysmorphia to get out of actually contributing to society. Story 28. He passed away from substance misuse a while ago. I saw him once in college. I rolled into town with a softball-sized ball of stuff and a nitrous tank. I asked him what his plans were, and he said he was going to drive to Colorado to get something else. We weren't friends, but he knew someone I knew that was staying with me, so he and his friends all showed up at my place and didn't leave for like 2 days. He heard he got into substances after I saw him, but had got clean. He was dating a girl with a kid and seemed to be doing well. He went to hang out with old friends, and I basically watched his entire passing play out over social media. From his post about seeing old friends to his girlfriend's panic messages for anyone that knew him to tell him to call her to his mom's eventual post that he had passed. It was all very messed up. The guy just never really stood a chance. There was another kid that dropped out to go to Votech. It wasn't really done in my town of doctors and lawyers where everyone was expected to go to college. He got into trouble when he and his friends lit golf carts on fire at the local country club, and the EPA got called because of the acid that leaked into the soil. But I saw him at a bar after that, and he was working as a mechanic, complete with his dirty overalls and hands. I think he actually bought me a beer, but I was never a schmuck to him, so I think that's why. Story 29. Well, I'm doing pretty good, actually. I have a nice house, a wife, and 2 fantastic kids, both super smart and doing quite well. Me, I have an incredible job. Could pay more, but work-life balance is perfect. I get to travel a little bit, play a lot of golf, and make a yearly pilgrimage to Scotland and one other to another local with a group of golf buddies. Wife and I are looking at retiring a little early in Southern Europe somewhere, looking at Italy, Spain, or France along the Mediterranean. But yeah, overall, I was the loser in high school. Technically graduated with like a 2.3 or something. They gave us our diplomas in the gym after the ceremony. The assistant principal pulled me aside and gave me mine out of the line. Told me I was not allowed back on school property or I would be charged with trespassing. They just wanted me gone. Not proud of that at all. Funny thing is, my wife was student council, smart, all that jazz. We met the summer after high school. Been married for 28 years this year. We went to homecoming the next year and that assistant principal was appalled that we were dating. She's currently floating across the pool from me nearly 30 years later. I'm doing pretty well. Story 30. He recently friended me on Facebook after liking all of my photos and public posts. Was using an obviously fake name, avatar profile pic, and 0 content on his page. We were both part of the outsiders at school, so I was willing to give him a little time and space. He was all paranoid about needing to protect his privacy, but wouldn't say why. Said something outrageously offensive about my girlfriend and claimed he was allowed to say it because of his genuine beliefs that I needed to respect. Unfriended and blocked him instantly and then posted on my page about how someone from my past was floating around deep undercover and that it would be unsafe for queer folk to friend. A friend from my school days got in touch and she had the tea without even me asking. He's been in prison 2 or 3 times for mistreatment. Deep undercover because he was in protection while in prison and could be ended if people find out who he really is. Apparently, his mother was an accomplice and also did time. Oh, and he's homophobic on top of all that. Yes, we did go to a religious school. Pentecostal happy clappers who don't care what your sins are as long as you put your 10 to 20% tithe in the bowl and keep everyone else's secrets. And we could all safely guess he's still attending one of those churches and probably teaching Sunday school. Story 31. I dropped out of high school at 16 due to pestering and lack of interest. I went into a welder helper job. Found out I liked working with my hands and tinkering, which led to my GED, then associates in industrial maintenance. 9 years after that, I'm going back from a bachelor's of computer engineering. I'm a homeowner. Found love, and I'm happy with my life. Sometimes you have to step into the life that's sitting in front of you rather than planning for one that you want to. Story 32. Define loser. The kid that failed 11th grade after barely making it for years and had to transfer schools? Honestly, I don't know. In hindsight, he was very obviously struggling with his mental health at the time, so I really hope he got the help he needed and managed to find his way in life. The unpopular kid that no one wanted anything to do with? That was me. I'm doing fine. Went to uni, discovered I was more likable than I thought, and had just been with the wrong crowd the whole time. Got an undergraduate degree in law. Went abroad for a master's. Got proof that I am in fact a bisexual. Got really into rock and metal and started traveling all over Europe to see my favorite bands. Back in school, I always had a boring good girl rap. I wonder what my classmates would think if they saw me now. Story 33. I was one of the losers from 8th to 10th grade. I don't know what happened after that, but I gained popularity in 11th grade, but after high school, I dropped out of college and started working full-time at AutoZone. I learned how to play chess and got into the top 1% of all players on chess.com. I would stream and make YouTube videos in my apartment when I wasn't at work. I got a girlfriend and moved 3 states away where I continued and even picked production up on the streaming and YouTube videos. I played in several OTB tournaments and joined a local chess club. Since March this year, I've almost completely cut out the chess and now I play golf and work at a car dealership in the parts department. Every day on my lunch break, I go to the driving range and I'll play a round or two on the weekends. I'm still trying to find that niche that I excel at. Story 34. He had clearly undiagnosed and was now remembering it. Came from a very wealthy and very permissive family. I was incredibly spoiled. One time I got a punishment for being stupid. We all had to dig holes and plant trees. He refused, and his parents straight up sent 2 laborers to dig his holes. Wild. They seemed afraid of him. Anyway, the boy passed away. He got into grass a decade ago and was found in a car. The other one, also very wealthy and very spoiled, recently passed away from alcoholism. He brought something harmful to school and threatened people. Didn't get expelled because his parents paid the teachers off and donated a school bus or some crap. He was 45. The last one is also gone. Also from an incredibly wealthy family, one of the richest ones. When he was 16, he crashed his father's red Mercedes-Benz. It was brand new and ended his friend. You'd think he changed, but he just got worse and worse, and then he passed away from alcoholism a few years ago. Dumb people go away young. I feel terrible for their families. Story 35. Depends on which loser you're talking about and how you define loser. There was this guy from my high school. We were good friends. He was also the epitome of nerdy and uncool. I played Pokemon and video games and Yu-Gi-Oh! I was also extremely overweight. People also found him abrasive and weird, and he wasn't well-liked. I remember in sophomore year, he created a fake girlfriend on Facebook to troll people. That's how cringe this guy was. I remember talking some sense to him, saying that people are going to think he's more weird now. He also made a pact with a couple of other guys to lose their V-card, but it went nowhere. Most girls thought he was really weird. Anyway, he did a massive 180 change in college. In college, he started an intense workout regimen and lost a lot of weight. He joined a frat and started partying a lot and became an ultimate stereotypical left boy. He was a completely different person than he was in high school. This is the same guy who was a major loser in high school. Fast forward today, they got this random girl pregnant and she wanted to keep the baby and he wanted to be involved in this child's life. So they had a quick wedding and they ended up staying together for the sake of the child. He stepped up, quit his partying, got a real job and started taking care of the child. Anyway, that's where the loser of my high school ended up. He went from being a nerdy, awkward loser in high school to a frat boy party animal in college to getting a girl pregnant and then stepping up and taking responsibility for his kid. I can respect that. Story 36. Western European experience. I was not popular until I was 14. Then my class got a major reshuffle and I ended up in the popular crowd, which in my school were the metal kids who also played RPGs. I went into education, a respectable, well-paying career in my country. 3 guys I went to school with had selection training with professional football. For U.S. readers, soccer teams. Only one made it. The one who made it is wealthy now, obviously. The second one got a regular job. The last one started taking substances and has been in and out of prison. Story 37. The ones I know are where I expected them to be. Bouncing from one construction job to another. Together by common law with a bad boy-loving woman that started adulthood with an unplanned early pregnancy. I know they're still living in the area. Or at least alive by the traffic that goes past friends' places en route to the local dealers in the neighborhood. Sure, it seems the lifestyle they prefer, and I'm only guessing. At least one of them would likely have a tattoo that reads,
Live hard, pass away young. That said, I know far more people from the popular crowd, being the jock or cheerleader types who've ended up gone from coding. So I'm not keen on judging those who weren't as driven to succeed when they were teens. Story 38. I don't think he ever made it out of the first few weeks of freshman year of high school. He tried 4 times but got suspended and eventually kicked out for good after the 4th try. We had briefly been friends in 6th grade. I was definitely going through a weird phase where I was definitely a schmuck 12 years ago. This kid was clearly crazy, so I would suggest he do something and then he would. After a few weeks, though, I realized I was being more of a schmuck than your typical 12-year-old and that this kid was genuinely crazy and was going to end up getting in serious trouble, so I stopped hanging out with him. I remember they had us go to peer mediation and I was asked why I suddenly stopped talking to him and I straight up said, "This is all of the crap he has done and I just feel like he's an oppressor and that isn't who I want to be." And the mediators were just like, "Oh." So now it's the first week of 9th grade, high school, and someone is going around the school pooping in weird places. Garbage cans, sinks, on the floor in front of toilets. People christen the culprit the poop bandit. By the 2nd or 3rd week, they figured out it was this kid, and he was suspended for the year. Can't remember what happened sophomore year. I just know he was gone before the end of the first month. I know junior year he brought something he shouldn't have to school and got kicked out for the rest of the year for that reason. I can't remember what happened when I was a senior, but he got kicked out of his 4th try at freshman year again. Towards the end of my senior year, I had gym class first period, and we had to take a bus to an offsite location about a mile away for the unit we were doing. It was at an old school, still owned by the district. So we get to the location around 8:15 a.m., and this guy's standing just off the property smoking cigarettes by himself. I remember we were all like, "Bro, why the heck is this dude hanging out at a school so early in the morning after getting kicked out of school 4 times? He clearly doesn't want to be here. It makes no sense." That was the last time I ever saw him in person. A freshman or sophomore year of college, I saw a news article from back home about this guy getting intoxicated and then driving to a church and busting all the windows out. I don't know what demons this guy had or where he is now, but he had been in jail. Story 39. 3-way tie, I think. The guy who never did his work and screwed around all the time is a machine learning developer in Silicon Valley. He has his own Wikipedia page and found me on LinkedIn. He thanked me for letting him copy my homework. The guy who slept through class every day and barely graduated works for the State Fish and Wildlife Department as some type of game warden. The guy who thought he was better than everyone else so hardly showed up to school is fixing computers with a side hustle as a crypto trader. I get mass messages from him almost 20 years later to invest in whatever garbage coin is promoting that month. Story 40. I'm doing great. I was the school target, got jumped and harmed by the other girls in school constantly. Now I'm in another province. I have a wonderful fiance. We've got a house together, planning a family. I've traveled. I have regular adventures, doing fun activities and going places. And I have truly genuine and kind friends. I get a lot of kids from school adding me to FB now. They're still in the little 500-person town and they're still gossiping over ridiculous stuff. It's kind of mind-blowing to see that 20-plus years can pass and they're still squabbling over the same stuff. They've got no concept of the larger world around them and who such and such is dating is world-ending news for them. I'm so glad I got out. Story 41. I'm a healthcare provider for homeless vets. I'm in my late 40s, and a few months ago, I had a vet come in seeking assistance. I've been doing a lot to help him. He doesn't remember me, but I remember him from high school. We hung out a few times. I have vivid memories of my mom objecting to us hanging out. She's gotten a kick out of being right in that call. His life took a lot of unfortunate turns, and it's weird hearing about his younger years from this perspective. Sharing all the cruelty he was going through when he was a teen, how he was depressed. He doesn't know that I know him from high school, and now it's too late to drop that on him, and so I'll have to just play dumb if he realizes we may have been in the same small town of 2,000 people around the same time. How does he not know? Story 42. This situation is really heartbreaking. She has 3 young daughters. The oldest is in her biological child, seemingly from her partner's unfaithfulness. She then had 2 biological children with him. She's had a very difficult past with legal issues and instability. She worked incredibly hard, walking from their apartment to her job every day, even up until she gave birth. I wasn't a close friend, but I knew her. I was actually pretty close with her partner growing up. We provided their entire Christmas last year, buying everything. They acted a bit unusual. They never sent photos of the kids on Christmas morning. It wasn't required, but I personally would have. Cheated on her and left her and the children a few months ago. She became homeless, and her children were staying with various family members to avoid being taken into care. When I talked to her and offered advice on moving forward, her responses were very strange. I think she may have some underlying challenges that I hadn't fully recognized before. And when he cheated and left, they were living in a hotel and it was with someone staying in the room across the hall. So she was in a hotel with a newborn and 2 other children. while her partner or father of her children was living right across the hall. It broke my heart. I really hope she can recover and rebuild her life. That schmuck should end himself. Story 43. There was a kid in my junior year who constantly got in trouble. Bad grades, total I don't give a crap attitude. A few friends were also on the same track as he was. He was a loser. I, on the other hand, got good grades and kept my nose clean through high school. Did the AP class route, graduated from a great college, got into a great law school, was overall on track to have a successful career and see the fruits of all my hard work pay off. Imagine my shock when I ran into him one day in law school. It was a year behind me. How? I got this because it worked hard, right? This is how the world works, right? I was rethinking every one of my life choices because how did we end up at the same place? Imagine my more shock when I looked him up years later and saw he passed away in a freak car accident. It's all a weird fever dream at this point. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.